Hello again. Welcome to another reading of On His Majesty's Secret Service. When we left Colney, she was with the handsome devils, dealing with them and teaching them a game she learned when she was in the army, a drinking game. Happy spring. Just getting over being ill and I feel much better now, so I'm ready for another reading. Add that to the snob appeal of a posh, heavily restricted club such as Colney imagined this, during the daytime, to be the coroneted G and the mystique of Research Institute run by a count, and you were off to the races. Skiing today, Colney had read, was the most widely practiced sport in the world. It sounded unlikely, but then one reckoned the others largely by spectators. Skiers were participants and bigger spenders on equipment than in other sports. Clothes, boots, skis, bindings, and now the whole après-ski routine, which took care of the day from 4 o'clock, when the sun went down onwards, were a tremendous industry. If you could lay your hands on a good Alp, which Mr. Wood had somehow managed to do, you really had it good. Mortgages paid off, snow was the joker, but in the Engadine, at this height, you would be all right for that. In 3 or 4 years, and then jam forever. One certainly had to hand it to him. Did he actually buy it, or steal it, or inherit it from the ski loft's former owner? It was time to make the going again. Resignedly, Colney turned to Fraulein Ivana. Fraulein Gedonia, please explain to me, what is the difference between a piece and an Alp and a berg? The yellow eyes gleamed with academic enthusiasm. Ah, Miss Hatch, but that is an interesting question, yeah? It had not occurred to me before. Now let me see. She gazed into the middle distance. A piece, that is only a local name in the department of Switzerland for a peak. An Alp, that one would think would be smaller than a berg, a hill perhaps, or an upland pasture, as compared with a mountain. But this is not so. These, she waved her hand, are all Alps, and yet they are great mountains. It is the same in Austria, certainly in Tyrol, but in Germany, in Bavaria for instance, which is my homeland, there it is all bergs. No, Miss Hatch, the box-like smile was switched on and off, I cannot help you, but why do you ask? In my profession, said Colney prosily, the exact meaning of words is vital. Now, before we met for cocktails, it amused me to lock up your surname, Gitana, in my books of reference. What I found, Fraulein, was most interesting. Gedania, it seems, is German for up on top, or dominant. In England, the name has almost certainly been corrupted into Garnish, perhaps even into Guardian, because the grandfather of the famous literary family by that name had in fact changed his name from the less aristocratic name of Getuni. Now, this is most interesting. Colney knew that it wasn't, that this was all hocus pocus, but she thought it would do no harm to stretch her heraldic muscles. Can you remember if your ancestors had any connection with England? There is the Dukedom of Garnish, you see, which Nelson assumed. It would be interesting to establish a connection. The penny dropped. A duchess. Ivana Gedania was hooked. Went off into a dreary chronicle of her forebears, including proudly distant relationship with a Heinrich von Gedania. Colney listened politely, prodding her back to the immediate past. She gave the name of her father and her mother. Colney filed them away. She now had enough to find out in due course exactly who Ivana was. What a splendid trap snobbery was. How right Sable Ballast had been. There is a snob in all of us, and only through snobbery could Colney have discovered who the parents of this woman were. Colney finally calmed down the woman's momentary fever, and the head waiter, who had been politely hovering, presented giant menus covered in violet ink. There was everything from caviar down to double maca au whisky irlandaise. There were also many specialities, Gloria, poulet Gloria, homard Gloria, tornadoes Gloria, and so on. Colney, despite her forswearing of specialties, decided to give the chicken a chance. She said so, and was surprised by the enthusiasm with which Belial greeted her choice. Oh, how right you are, Miss Hatch. I adore chicken, too. I absolutely dote on it. Can I have that, too, please, Miss Catania? There was such surprising fervor in his voice that Colney watched Ivana's face. What was that matronly gleam in her eye as she gave her approval? It was more than approval for a good appetite among her charges. There was enthusiasm, even triumph. Odd. And it happened again when Crony stipulated plenty of potatoes with his tornadoes. I simply love potatoes, he explained to Colney, his eyes shining with the glitter of tequila. Don't you? They're fine, agreed Colney, trying not to laugh. When you're taking plenty of exercise, that is. Very good indeed, my dear, agreed Ivana. Very good for you, too. And Fritz, I will just have the mixed salad with some cottage cheese. She gave the character of a simper. Alas, spoke to Colney, I have to watch my figure. These young things take plenty of exercise, while I must stay in my office and do the paperwork, isn't it? At the next cable, Colney heard the man with the French crop cut. his voice full of saliva, asked that his boof steak should be cooked very rare indeed. Gut and bloody, oui? He emphasized. What was this, wondered Colney, a gathering of beautiful ogres? Or was this a day off from some rigorous diet? She felt completely clueless, out of her depth. Well, she would just go on digging. She turned to Belial. You see what I mean about surnames. Fraulein Gaetania may even have distant claim to an English title. Now, what's yours, for instance? I'll see what I can make of it. Fraulein Gaetania broke in sharply. No surnames here, Miss Hatch. It is a rule of the house. We use only first names for the boys and not the Christian names. It is part of Mr. Wood's rules. It is bound up with a change, a transference of identity, to help the secrecy of the project. You understand? Now, I'm afraid that's way out of my depth, said Colney cheerfully. No doubt Mr. Wood will explain some of these matters to you tomorrow. He has his special theories. One day the world will be startled when he reveals his methods. Mr. Wood sat silently, smiling. I'm sure, said Colney. Well now, she searched for a subject that would have her mind free to roam on its own. Tell me about your skiing. How are you getting on? I don't do it myself, I'm afraid. Perhaps I shall pick up some tips watching your classes. It was immediate ball which went bouncing on between Belial and Dracovic, and Colney kept it in play, while their food came and proved delicious. Poulet Gloria was spatch-cooked, with the mustard cream sauce. The boys fell silent over their dishes, consuming them with polite but concentrated greed.